You like that? Good.
Is it better?
Still a little loud.
Still loud? Hello, good morning, everyone. This is not Rhett Palmer. This is Laura Stewart in for the on assignment Rhett Palmer, who we are looking so forward to having back in the studio with some amazing new content that he has for you. In the meantime, I am here with the totally amazing and awesome Stanford Erickson. Thank you for being my co-host again.
Yeah, it's a good morning. It's nice to be with you. You look a little tired, though, Laura.
Oh, God, I drove back and forth to Fort Lauderdale yesterday to help friends out at a big trade show down in Lauderdale. I'm driving back today.
It's a tech show?
It's a tech show, yeah.
You're a techie, right?
I'm a geek.
You're a geek. Your personality is so wonderful, though. How did you become a geek?
Just lucky, I guess. Yeah, I wanted to be an astronaut. So since I wanted to be an astronaut back in the day, I'm 53. So back then, the only way you could be an astronaut was to have either military or some sort of engineering scientific. So I went into computers way, way, way back when, before computers or anything besides the massive inside an entire room kind of computer thing.
Mm.
And yeah, I just loved it.
Why did you change and not become an astronaut?
I decided that it wasn't worth the pain. It is one of the regrets I had, because I actually had an application in my hand for NASA back when I was in high school, but they were still not accepting women into the space program. So applying to NASA wasn't going to get me anything other than working behind the scenes, and I just didn't want to do that. Thank you for that, Sean.
It tugs at your heart. Yes,
Yeah.
It just tugs at your heart.
Yeah, it was one of those really, really hard decisions, but I didn't want to be involved any other way. But as owning my own tech company, I ended up doing work for a number of people that worked at NASA and taking care of a lot of that stuff. So I got in some ways, but I never got to the astronaut program. And that is a regret, probably the only one I have. Yeah, it was. When I had those thoughts of, I wanted to become an astronaut and making my mind up, I wasn't going to apply, a letter actually surfaced a number of years later that a woman had applied, and a letter got sent back to her saying, we do not accept women into the space program. And it was right when I was going to apply. So obviously it was, I made the right choice at that moment, but I probably could have kept trying.
This is Sean who's speaking right now.
Yeah, Sean Murphy, our awesome producer.
Well, there was not a glass ceiling. It was an alabaster ceiling. It was I wrote my book, How to Be the Kind of Women That Could Be President of the United States, because you had to be very courageous to be a leader. A woman who was, I think you're born a leader, but a woman to be a leader in the 20th century was very difficult. You had economic reasons, social reasons, biological reasons, religious reasons that held you back. And thank God, the 21st century, that's over to some degree.
But, then you look at it and you see like a Golda Meir, who there's no way, time-wise, she should have been the powerhouse she was in Israel when she was, because she was a woman and it was Israel. And it just didn't make sense. But yet she became such a powerful force.
And
you know,
in
you look at
Israel, in the religion, she did not become mayor of Jerusalem, though everyone, all the power people wanted her, because the religious people were opposed to a woman being in
Right.
charge.
And then India had a famous female in
Gandhi.
charge. Yeah.
Yeah. Religion has done more to hold women down than anything in the name of purity. They wanted to keep the woman pure. You know,
No, it's just the men didn't want the women in power because they were afraid of what we were going to do.
probably.
We would change things and shake things up quite a bit.
Well, that's why I thought Islam, that the reason they make the women put all that garb on is because the men might be tempted. That doesn't make sense.
No,
The men might be tempted.
it totally makes no sense at all. I mean, there was a girl on the news. She had gone to Paris with her parents, and they bought her this lovely Audrey Hepburn-like dress. Now, you think Audrey Hepburn and the clothing she wore, and they were just conservative, beautiful. You know, it wasn't like they were showing off, you know, their young girl's body. And she was going to her prom, and they wouldn't let her go to the prom because she showed her arms, and it might tempt the boys. It's like, aren't you guys supposed to be responsible for your own thoughts, your own control? Why do women have to be responsible for
That's for me, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
We're going to have a very serious time today. We have some serious candidates. We have a Rear Admiral who talk about military. But I thought before we do that, because you just need a little humor,
You're gonna read your poem.
I'm going to read my poem.
People you don't know this, but Stanford is a published poet.
I started as a poet, but you could not make money as a poet, so I had to go into journalism to survive. But in San Francisco, poets, you know, that was sort of the norm. But
You were a beatnik poet?
well, I sort of was a little after the beatniks, but I saw the beatniks, yes. They influenced me.
All right, and wait, drum roll, please. Here is Stanford Erickson reading his latest poem.
Rat Man. I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm the Rat Man. Wear my trousers round my knees, swing my hips, do as I please. I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm the Rat Man. World you made perfect for me to tickle my fancy, brighten my smile, gather in the chicks with dribble and bile. I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm the Rat Man. My hate is big, badder than yours. Break your windows, slam my doors. Know this about me. I'm bigger and badder than a banshee. I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm the Rat Man. Sure, you see there's a sweet side to me, the childlike thing you want to hug and cling. But I cry and we, selfishly, a newborn baby, sweeter than candy, deadlier than a cavity. Because I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm the Rat Man. There's a pimple, push out the pus. There's a problem, add to the muss. Smoke and drink, shoot up and stink. Ills of society, grab them like the Almighty. There's money, you see, spotlighting all that's wrong but me, because I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm the Rat Man. You know where rat came from? Rhythm is easy to see. Comes from the rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat, the rubber basketball on the asphalt court. Rat-a-tat, 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 rat-a-tat-tat. Take the hard round ball to the steel ringed hole, my tongue hanging out, a big bad shout, out of my way. I go to the hoop. Excuse me, please, all elbows and knees. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm the Rat Man. There's a pimple, push out the pus. There's a problem, add to the muss. Smoke and drink, shoot up and stink. Ills of society, grab them like the Almighty. There's money, you see, spotlighting all that's wrong but me, because I'm the Rat Man. Hey, looking at me, I'm your Rat Man. Rat Man, Rat Man, Rat Man.
I love that. That was awesome. And your delivery was truly spectacular. You looked like you really enjoyed doing that, and I love the words on it.
Well, I used to do poet-a-tets. I used to do poet-a-tets, and I'd compete, and all these Rat Mans would do their poems, and they were so spectacular. And I had these very thoughtful, deep poems, and I'd win the first round, but the last round I always lost to the Rat Man. So I said, I got to write a Ratman poem. So I wrote the Ratman poem and I won.
Ah, yes, that is totally awesome. All right, we're going into commercial break. As Laura Stewart sitting in for the On Assignment Red Palmer with my co-host, the amazing poet Stanford Erickson. We'll be right back with more from the Red Palmer Show.
James? Yeah, sure. Bring the coffee. You like the poem?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I was on the.
That was great. I loved you interjecting.
Huh?
I loved you interjecting. That was perfect.
Yeah, I had to say that because I think it's important. It happened so quickly. When
Yeah,
you think of.
that was perfect. Hi, I'm Laura.
Hi, Laura. I'm Jim.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
Right, so do that if you can for me. I'll get you set up here, and there you go. You're good to go. And there's your headphones. Okay.
All right.
I think we're all good.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah. Want me to call you Jim versus Jim?
Yeah, Jim would be
Okay.
great.
So I'll introduce you as Rear Admiral James Hart, aka Jim, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, make sure you tell him I'm retired.
And remember, we're broadcasting live on YouTube, so if you guys don't want the world to hear anything, don't say it on
All right.
breaks.
Is everybody on or just? Oh, I can't tell where the camera. Good morning, everybody. We have another guest in the studio that I'm so excited to have here. We have Rear Admiral James, aka Jim Hart, retired. And I'm sure there's another name you're probably known by since you are a former flyboy and you flew planes onto carriers. And I want to know all about that because I'm a big fan of Top Gun, and I used to watch JAG all the time and watch Harmland on the carriers. And you know, I want to thank you for coming to the studio today. Stanford has set up an amazing lineup of guests for us this morning, and I'm so excited to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, Laura, for inviting me in. Stan and I are good friends, and I've known him for quite a while since I've moved to Vero Beach. So I look forward to spending a little time with you today.
How long have you been in Vero?
We got here in 2013. We came down from Washington, D.C. Temporarily for a while, and then this year we moved down permanently. So we live here in Vero now over on A1A at a place called Ocean Ridge.
Oh, that's such a pretty place over there. But everything in Vero is so pretty, especially when you go beachside, right? Everything just takes on a different feeling.
It certainly does. We fell in love with this place when we first came down here.
Now, how did you find Vero?
Well, that's a little bit of a sad story. My stepson's father lived here, and he passed away. So I had just gotten back from 5 years in Europe, in Germany. So we had come down here to help him with the estate and the funeral and all that kind of thing. And we saw this and decided maybe we'd like to live here ourselves in the future. So that's how we got here.
Wow. It's always sad when something like that happens, but what I love is that God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, creates something so beautiful from a sadness.
Yes, that's very true.
So it was really cool. Now, how long were you in the Navy? I mean, becoming a Rear Admiral is not something most people achieve.
Well, thank you. I was in the Navy for 33 years. I started off in 1975 as an aviation officer candidate. I went through Middle Tennessee State University and decided I would want to be a flyer. I didn't have the eyesight to be a pilot, so I became a naval flight officer. So I flew in S3s and then F-14s off the aircraft carriers. So that's how I got started in the Navy. And after 33 years, I left the Navy, and my last tour in the Navy had been over in East Africa in a place called Djibouti, about 9 miles from the Somali border. We had a fairly large task force there, and I was in charge of that task force. So as I was leaving the Navy, retiring, President Bush had stood up a new command called Africa Command in Germany, and I was hired as a senior civilian to work as a deputy director there in Stuttgart. So my African time led to more African time. So from about 2007 to 2013, I was involved in military issues in Africa.
He was involved in some of the military when Benghazi took place. So is it, it's been politicized to such a degree, so it's very difficult to have facts. But was it possible when the poor Americans were under distress, was it possible to go aid them at any time?
It was not possible to do it in the time constraints that were available to us. The government, our government, State Department, had decided that they wanted a low security footprint there. They did not want a lot of military folks there. So they assumed, as it turns out, quite a bit of risk. It ended up in Baxter Stevens losing his life along with a few other members of his staff. But at the time, no, there was no way to get there in time to help him.
What was the reasoning? I mean, I always feel from a civilian perspective that we don't know what's going on with these chess piece like moves, but there had to be a reason why they didn't want to put a bigger presence. Was it because they didn't want to inflame things, or?
I think there was some of that. Also, different parts of our government look at these problems in different ways, and
Right.
the State Department was trying to, I think, reach out to the Libyans. I think, in retrospect, what we didn't really understand was how hollow that top leadership tier was, and they really didn't have control of the government nor the society.
So it was sort of like a fresh lava flow where you get that hard crust, and when you break through, it's just bubbling up for the surface.
That's a good.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. There were lots of different factions within Libya that were vying for power at the time, because frankly, when Gaddafi controlled Libya, he paid off about the 7 largest tribes, the leaders of those tribes, to keep peace and be able to hold on to power. When he left the scene, now everyone was vying for control, and that led to opportunities like what happened with the terrorists in Benghazi.
Rear Admiral, you've been in various territories and countries in Africa. Why has it taken so long for the society to get together? What's holding that back?
Well, there's a lot of different problems and concerns there. I'll give you an example of some things I saw. You may remember back in the 2008 elections in Kenya, where they had all the riots. People were killed as they were trying to have a presidential election. When you go down there and you talk to those folks, they'll tell you that we've got 25 different language dialects here. We don't all speak the same language. We all come from tribes that were moved around in the country by the colonial powers, and we're not on the lands we were on originally when we first lived there. Yes, they speak English, but they don't have a concerted language. And at the time, to vote in Kenya, you had to go back home to the town you were born in to vote. You couldn't vote where you live now. So that's why they did it over the Christmas time. So it's things like that that cause these kinds of problems to exist. And you can look at it in lots of different other countries as well.
So the government over there don't want the people to band together, so they create policies to keep them separate, it sounds like?
In some cases. In Kenya, it was more of the colonial powers, the British, that did that.
Okay.
Back in the early 1900s, moved people around, that kind of thing. So right underneath the top level of society is all this bubbling up animosity and stuff towards different dialects and tribes and so forth, and that spilled over in the elections. That happens. So in Africa, sometimes you'll see a country take 2 steps forward and 1 back. It's that kind of thing. Look at Nigeria. It went from a country in the 1960s that could support its full population agriculture-wise to now being a renter state that has to survive on the sale of oil for everything. And so there's a lot of issues, a lot of problems over there. But I'll also tell you the people there have a lot of hope. They're very enthusiastic and they're very optimistic. It's amazing that they remain that way, but they do.
Why do you think it is that they can keep that hope when there's so much horror in their lives and strife?
I think it just comes from basically the school of hard knocks and their experiences, and they remain enthusiastic and optimistic about the future. I believe from conversations I've had with people in many different countries that there is a lot of frustration there. A lot of people are well educated, those in the cities, they really can't get the jobs that they need. So you see them moving to other parts of the world, and now you see the poor people also doing that with boat lifts across the Mediterranean. The people moving to large cities, leaving their homelands, that kind of thing.
So their culture is completely changing and evolving now because they don't seem to have many other options, or they're feeling it's just they have to leave.
I think they feel that they have to leave to find a better life for themselves, and they will take great risks to do that. To leave a place like Somalia and try to travel across East Africa, across Yemen to get to Saudi Arabia, to a place where they think they can get a decent job. So that they put their lives at risk to try to better themselves.
And then what happens to the country, when everybody starts leaving?
Well,
What's left?
you see, there's, I think, if I remember right, the population of Somalia is like a little over 9 million. There's 3 million Somalis that live in America. So it decimates the country. I mean, some of the very, very best people leave. There are countries that are trying to counter that, like Botswana, down in the southern part of Africa. They've gone and teamed up with.
All right, we're going into. I was so involved in the conversation, I wasn't paying attention to Sean. We will be right back after this break.
So I can finish that later if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought we might.
Sorry about that.
We might now.
You were into it, so I was just like, I don't know, I'll just throw on the music, she'll hear it.
No,
Chinese are
that was perfect. I
involved.
told you I'm just kind of sleepy.
Are they-
You have me not caffeine, so it's
Yes,
good.
Alright.
and then we'll get into.
Where should we?
How
Okay.
military prepared are we in the country and things like that.
We're on YouTube, by the way, and that's still going.
Yeah.
So
YouTube. Great. My son was like, "Hey, you gonna be able to record this?" And I was like, "Well, I'm sure they recorded." I said, "I
It's on YouTube.
we
so-
can send you the
Well, that'd be
the
great.
audio as well.
Yeah, we can send the CD.
What's your jmhart@mac.com?
That's it.
All right, we will send you the recording after the show. I'll have Sean do that. Do you need anything else?
No, I just need a little drink.
Okay. So your ring, when it hits the desk, or your watch, one of them is making a lot of noise. So just be careful or cautious when you're doing it.
Here's the watch. I'll put it over here.
I was trying to move it, and then you're like, "I'm on," and I had to turn my
Yeah,
head.
Eric Flowers, every time he comes in,
Because he has two
yeah, exactly. And I forget to come back, but it's okay.
cameras. And then you might have to help by staying out of the way.
Okay, let's see. How's that? Can you see that?
You're good?
Yeah, it's okay.
All right.
It's not the best camera setup in the world, but
Better than it used to be.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
there. Now we see. Now we got all of you.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. So remember, on breaks, you're live on YouTube. So.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll be back in about 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll just finish that point I was making very quickly.
All right, wait.
Yeah,
Wait
and
one
then
second.
I'd like to
Rhett
ask
sent
about
us a
the,
video.
I'll ask about the Chinese.
I'm the Rat Man, and I'm talking to you. It's another Monday, which was a Sunday.
Oh, he's on
but it's gonna be
vacation.
Monday, because I'm the Rat Man. Hey, Rat Man. By the way, Stanford, when I turned it on, I thought, I don't mean this offensively, but I thought, who's that black woman that's doing that rap?
Okay, I'm gonna shut that off since we're on YouTube. I'm
Who's
just
that
gonna
black woman?
shut that off.
Oh, well, in a high voice. I like that. But that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to, I competed with all these poets, and
I was listening to you out
yeah,
there.
the rap
Yeah.
men just kept beating me all the time because they were so dramatic and they were so fantastic.
Yeah.
The lesbians also used to beat me because they'd end up with their poems and say, and I'm a lesbian and everything. Yay! Don't do that to me.
Couldn't win, could you?
No, it's about poems. But most poets are, and people that read poetry are very socially conscious. They want to take care of people and
Mhm.
kind, and being intellectual did not work with those people, trust me.
So you want to bring us back in?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, you'll bring us back in from the break. And you can keep
I just
going
want
with
to
your
finish
thought.
that point because it's about Duke University and University of North Carolina and how they're helping them. And I'll end it there.
So you'll bring them back in.
Yep, I'll
to
bring 'em
finish
back
that
in.
point. It's the news.
Well,
so-
why don't you, I can't see when he wants to bring it back in, so you have to do it.
Yeah, you got
Yeah,
a
well,
couple
I was
more.
sitting here and I saw him put like a little clock up in the window.
Yeah, so
right?
if you see that, just go like this, point to me, or go like that, so I know to look, because I was
Okay,
so
Because I saw
absorbed
some
in your,
clock and I was like, oh,
I was so absorbed in your conversation, I wasn't paying attention, but I heard the music, so I could take us out after.
So how long are you going to be doing this then? How long are you going to be filling in for Rhett here?
Oh, just today,
Just
just
today.
coming, flying back.
We did last week, and
We did last week too.
And then we're probably gonna be on for the hour before my show with Rhett next week, because he
Are we?
liked us doing.
Oh, yeah. Ed Minster was on last week. He did a great job talking about the Fed and things like that. And we had Joe Saul speaking about Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone through almost everybody with a dog, so
Oh, have you?
we have to find some other people.
Alright, so when I go like that, you're gonna bring us back
Okay,
in and
okay.
have Jim Rear Admiral finish his thought, okay? Another commercial. This should be the last one.
45 seconds.
Oh, alright. I forget. We have the long commercials. So, we have 45 seconds.
These ads are like listening to a 9-chapter book. I mean, it's just like,
It's not really Rhett Palmer here. This is Stanford Erickson. Rhett, though, is listening because he's already critiqued my poem, thinking it was okay, but he could have done better. With us is Laura Stewart, the host really of the program, and a brilliant geek, as she calls herself. And we're joined with Rear Admiral James Hart, who retired, who's talking a little about Africa and his experience in Africa when he was attached there as a military advisor.
Yes, I just wanted to finish the point I was making. We were talking about Botswana and the people that leave Africa. In Botswana for years, they would have to send their medical students to Great Britain or Australia for training. And what they found is they wouldn't come back because they become part of the society, they had a much better standard of living and so forth. So a few years ago, they teamed up with Duke University and the University of North Carolina to help set up a medical school right there in Botswana itself. That's helped them out immensely. Now they have doctors and nurses that are trained, stay there, and take care of the folks. So it's a good all way round deal for everybody.
I read this somewhere that the Chinese, from a military point of view, the Chinese are very much, from a strategic point of view, very much interested in Africa. Was that your experience?
Yes, they need natural resources, so they're always looking for oil, copper, all kinds of commodities like that. The Chinese will do public works in different countries to try to generate good support and so forth. I think in 2012 they sent their hospital ship to Africa, and they went from port to port, helping people and that kind of thing. The Chinese don't assimilate into the economy or the society. They come in, they live in secluded areas. They work there, but they don't. Excuse me, but they don't really become part of the society, and they don't really leave anything behind when they go.
So it's that's not if you want to infiltrate, that's probably not the best way to do it. Is that from if you're strategically from a military point of view, you want to sort of influence? We're probably lucky that they don't do it that way. That they do it that way.
That's true, and each country is a little bit different in who deals with them and who doesn't. But if you're Ethiopia and you can't buy weapons or military supplies from NATO or the United States, you'll look to other places, and that's where the Chinese, the North Koreans, people like that get an edge and an opportunity.
I have a kind of a question that builds off of all of that. I've never had a chance to ask any of my military friends this. So my dad was Army, Korean War, and I haven't thanked you for your service, but thank you so much for that. I think the military, we would not have the freedoms we have if it was not for our military. It just seems like as the years have gone by, our military doesn't have the same might in the world that it used to have. It used to be if the Americans were stepping in, things would completely change and peace would start to come sooner or whatever. What's happened to our military in the world today and the perceptions of the world and inside the military itself? And I know you're retired and,
I think overall, the military is held in high esteem by all of our allies. I mean, the rest of the world really can't solve a problem that requires military action without the United States. And it's really because of our infrastructure, our intelligence, the ability to provide lift. In other words, to fuel airplanes, move cargo, that kind of thing. And our soldiers are thought very, very highly of. I can tell you because I trained lots of places in Africa. I've seen it in the Middle East. We are sought out and considered to be the finest military in the world. So I don't necessarily see some of that. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you look at where our U.S. military may be heading, the budget has been coming down for the military since about 2010. If you went back and looked at public records, you'd see that the budget was about $691 billion in 2010.
wow,
2015, it's $550 billion. Now that's
a huge shot.
That's about a 20% drop in the overall funding. So no one's asked us to do less, but because of budgetary controls with the sequestration and the Budget Control Act of 2011, that money's coming down, and sooner or later we're going to have to pay for that. And I think this election cycle and the next president, along with Congress and the military leadership, is going to have to address that.
So like anything, if you don't have the funds to keep everybody at the levels they need to be at with the right equipment, then something's going to start to suffer.
Yes. I mean, for example, take the Navy today. It has about 288 ships. That's a lot of ships. but the requirement that the Navy thinks they need is 308. So there's a drop there. On any given day, the United States Navy has 95 of those 288 ships deployed around the world. So that's about 1/3 of the force. So you're right at the limits now, because if you want to be forward deployed like the Navy, you need a 3-to-1 ratio. For every one you have deployed out, you need 2 back, 1 in training, one refitting,
Okay.
getting, spending time with their families, that kind of thing.
It's such a hard life being in the military in terms of being away from family. And then to hear what you're saying, that our elected officials are not providing them with everything that perhaps they need, that's kind of frightening to me as an American and somebody who believes in the military and supports them.
Yeah, I would agree with you that is where we're at today. And I think the military's done a very good job of keeping their readiness up as best they can to meet the current requirements. But I think you have to think, 5-10 years down the line. If we don't address these kind of issues and build the military we need, we're gonna have a hollow force out in the future if we're not careful.
For those who just turned in, we're speaking to Rear Admiral James Hart, and he's retired. Rear Admiral, I watched the Democratic convention, and the progressives say, well, we got drones now, and we have cyber security. We really don't need the military. Can we win wars with drones, and can we do it in this detached way that we seem to be doing to some degree?
I don't believe so. You have to have a full and complete military. The force services, they have to be manned and equipped at the correct levels to be able to protect this country. And drones can't do it alone. That's an important tool, and it's a good tool because it takes pilots out of the equation, and you don't have to worry about losing a pilot in combat. So drones are a good supplement, but they're not the answer, and technology is not the answer. It's a combination of that along with a force that'll keep this country safe.
If for young people listening today, or parents who have young people that might want to go into the military, why would they want to? Why should they go into the military? What does the military offer a young person?
I think it offers a fabulous education, a great profession, one that whether you stay in the military for your entire career or not, will help you in life as you move forward. The challenges that you'll deal with, the opportunities you'll be given as a very young person, make that a fantastic opportunity. Let me just give you a sidelight. When I was an Air Wing commander, I was 49 years old.
What's an Air Wing commander?
I was in charge of 8 squadrons on the aircraft carrier George Washington.
And how many people are in a squadron? How many men?
Well, I had about close to 2,000 people in the wing, and then the captain of the ship had about another 3,500. So you're talking about almost 6,000, not quite, about 5,000 people on the ship. I was 49 years old. I was the 5th oldest person on the ship. So that shows you the opportunities young people have to direct airplanes, to operate equipment, to drive the ship. It's a young man's world, and there's great opportunities out there.
The leadership lessons that you must have learned with how to work as a team and create that unity of purpose and thought, that's pretty incredible, because you can't just say, go do this. I mean, yeah, you're in the military, so you're going to take orders, but they need to believe that you've got their back. How do you develop that? And we've only got another minute or so till commercial, but
it starts with day one when you enter the military. They make everybody almost look the same. They work together. You learn team concepts. You learn it's not about
Well,
you.
they break. I was drafted, so
There you go.
in basic training, they break you before they build you up. Is that not correct? That
Yeah, I
correct?
think some of that's changed from when you were in that situation and when I was in that situation. But yes, that's along the lines of what we're talking about.
So the military, one of the beautiful things that they've learned is that you have to let go of the preconceived notions that you had before and shift your thinking and get you all thinking about each other and a common goal. Sounds like.
That's very true. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I think we could all use some of those lessons in our lives from the military.
I mean, one of the reasons I stayed in the military for so long was because I love the camaraderie and the people I worked with.
I would imagine that would be very different once you left the military. And Stanford, take us out to commercial break.
Okay, we're sitting in here for Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airways, and he's listening now. So we're trying to do well because he's so good at this. But we have Rear Admiral James Hart, and he will be back with us in a moment.
I'm losing my voice.
Would you like some water?
Yeah, I might be.
I'll get it. I'll get it.
You got it.
There you sit. I got it.
You grab me another bottle.
Sure.
I thought the coffee would help me, but maybe not.
And I'll get you some water. Do you need to move the mic or anything? Because I noticed you started going like this.
Well, he was telling me to do that.
You don't have to.
Maybe
Just talk right into the mic and you're fine. If you're better off with the mic that way towards you, that's fine. Yeah, just talk right into the mic. I think you're doing great.
okay.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me ask you some questions I've always wanted to ask.
All right.
I have friends that are 3-star generals,
Thanks.
retired. And,
Yeah.
I met Marty Evans, Rear Admiral Marty Evans. Her, it's a woman.
Oh,
She was in
Bring her
charge in San Francisco when the earthquakes happened. A whole bunch of,
oh,
that
back in,
might-
yeah.
she was the highest officer present. Everybody else was off site. And she had to make the decisions as to whether she attempt to reboot the city
45 seconds out.
with the ship.
Right.
And she said, well, if we fail, that's still better than if the headline in the newspaper says Navy refuses to help.
Oh, yeah.
It's better to say tried and failed than refused to help.
In that case, absolutely.
It worked, so it's a good thing.
I'll point at you again, Laura, to have you bring us back in.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm sitting here with two amazing men that are shifting my perspectives each time I talk to them some more. Here with Rear Admiral Jim Hart, retired, and Stanford Erickson. We're covering for Rhett Palmer, who is listening and texting me and sending me videos through my phone. So, hey, Rhett, we can't wait to have you back here sharing all the new information you've got. I'm not really sure, but he's interacting on so many levels, even though he's not here in the studio.
Well, it's called attention deficit.
Oh man! So Stanford, you said that you were drafted,
Yes.
and Rear Admiral Jim Hart, you volunteered to go into the military.
Yes, I did.
Okay, now.
I was in 1 year, 9 months, 8 days.
And how many minutes and seconds? It sounds like you couldn't wait to get out of
I
there.
remember every minute.
A good friend of mine, Deb Lewis, retired after 34 years. She was a colonel in the Army, was first female graduating class of West Point.
Wow.
And she was in the Pentagon on 9/11. And what I the feeling I get from her and all my other military friends, and I also get it from you, Jim, is that it's a very special experience. Would that be a good way of saying it? It's something that stays in your body and in your soul, especially when you've served as long as you have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there's a esprit de corps, it's a lifestyle, one of commitment. You end up I used to get up every day and look forward to going to work, when I was flying. Now, I can't say that exactly for the Pentagon, but I can certainly say that for when I was in a squadron.
Did you ever get lost in the Pentagon? I've been in the Pentagon. It's a complicated.
It is. I learned my way around. There's a code there to how you get around the Pentagon. It's a huge place. I mean, more than 20,000 people work there.
How many carriers do we have, and how many do the Russians have, and how many do the Chinese have?
Well, we have 11 carriers. I think 10 or 11 are operational right now. We have the Gerald Ford CVN 78 being built right now. I think it's going to be commissioned in 2017. The Soviets built carriers, but their carriers were not the same as ours. They had jump jets and helicopters, vertical takeoff and landing kinds of airplanes, not jets that are catapulted into the air and trapped aboard coming back. And the Chinese are along the same lines. They have a few. They're very interested in our technology, but that's very well protected.
What's it like landing and taking off from a carrier?
Well, it's an exciting experience. When they break an airplane down and they take it to the catapult, you taxi up. There's steam rising out of the cats and all that kind of thing.
And cats?
Catapults.
Oh,
Sorry,
catapults.
there's
Okay.
4 catapults on an aircraft carrier. You've got 2 on the side, which they call the angle deck, and they got 2 on the straight part of the deck, and it's all orchestrated and laid out so that they know exactly when your wings are spread that you're in a safe position. They call it foul lines, and nobody can be between the lines when they're going to launch an airplane. So what it's like is you taxi up to the airplane. You have a launch bar on your nose wheel. It's a hydraulic bar, and it drops down, and there's a hook, sort of a two-bladed hook, if you will, on the catapult itself, and that comes up, and they grab the airplane. And once they check that visually to make sure you're actually in there, they'll ask the pilot to come to full power, and as they do that, the catapult will lock. And what you have around the back is this piece of metal. It looks like a dumbbell. It's hooked down into the cat, and it's hooked onto the back of the launch bar. So at full tension, when they open the catapult, that breaks, and that's what allows you to go forward down the catapult to launch. So
How fast are you going there?
On an F-14, you're about 150 knots by the end of the stroke. So it's quite a jolt. I mean, you get pushed back in your seat, and you go forward. The pilot doesn't have his hands on the controls or the throttle. He just has them close, and then as soon as you get airborne, then he's flying the airplane. But beforehand, you have to turn in exactly how heavy your airplane is. So you have to know the basic weight of the airplane, what weapons you're carrying, how much fuel you have. And as you're taxiing up to catapult, they will show you a weight board. So the pilot has to agree that that's the right weight. So it'll show you 45,000 pounds, and you can raise it or you can lower it one time, and after that, you have to have a conversation about what's wrong. So they check all that, and when a catapult is kind of like, it's like a double-barrel shotgun that has a valve on the end of it, and how fast they open that valve depends on how big the shot is, how fast the steam comes in, and down you go. So at the end of the stroke, the below deck pieces of the catapult hit what's called a water break. that the airplane keeps going forward. So you leave the shuttle.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, yeah. So every now and then you have a problem, but very seldom.
So that's why the weight is so important, so they know how much power they need to
Right.
put to the catapult
Yes,
to
it's the
send you off.
acceleration that the valves open and the steam comes in that generates the force that allows you to get airborne.
And if you don't have enough, if you don't have the right weights and the right force, then the plane can't lift off, or
Right.
it sort of just falls off the edge of the.
Could, there's a thing called a cold catch shot where you don't get the right steam and you dribble down the flight deck, and depending on how fast you're going, you may have to eject out of the airplane.
I would imagine there's 10,000 things that can go wrong, both on the flight deck, in the cockpit, with the catapult, everything with it's
Right.
not just one person, there's so many different people involved with that process. It's just amazing to me every time I see it in military movies or in documentaries, how many moving pieces there are.
It's well orchestrated, and that's when you were asking me before about young people and why they should go into the service. Well, the responsibility that all those people have, from the catapult officer who's a lieutenant down to the guy that's checking to make sure that your launch bar is correctly in the shuttle. I mean, it's amazing. And then you have final checkers and people who are watching for any leaks and anything at all that might be wrong with the airplane. They can stop that. So it's well orchestrated. It's well planned. They don't launch you until the pilot salutes. In the day he salutes, at night he turns his lights on, and that's when they know he's ready to go. So he's in tension at full power. He watches, looks at his hydraulics, his oil, his thrust, all that kind of stuff. When he wipes out the airplane, make sure the controls are all work. When he's happy, he'll salute, or he'll turn the lights on at night.
I always thought the salute was a thank you, we're going, or a respect thing, but it's actually a signal.
It's actually a signal that he's ready to launch.
Now landing, that's another problem, right?
And landing, we're out of time virtually. I wanna thank you so much for being here with us, Jim.
Sure.
Rear Admiral Jim Hart, retired, talking about his time in Africa and what's going on there, and Russia and China and Benghazi, and most of all for sharing your knowledge about what it's like to be in the military. And we're really glad you're here in Vero Beach.
Well, thank you very much.
We're gonna have to have you back on the show.
I think he's gonna stay a little longer.
Oh, and I just found out from Stanford that you're going to stay a little longer. So awesome. You're going to be joining us with our next guest that's going to be coming on after the top of the hour. So this is Laura Stewart and Stanford Erickson carving for Rhett Palmer. And Jim, when we come back, I really do want to hear about what it's like to catapult. You told about catapulting off, but landing's just kind of frightening. There was something in the news a month ago where a plane went off the side of a carrier. So something went wrong in there, and I know it's not the norm for it. And I'm seeing our next guest walking in through the door now, so we're excited. Be right back.
Let's have another 15 minutes, and we'll bring Susan in as well.
Okay, do you want to just
Yeah, I'll get Susan.
get the correct
If you
stuff?
could move here,
Sure.
and we'll put Susan there. And just about, if you would, with how you land, and also leadership. We'll talk on leadership, and then that'll lead into Susan if we could. And you can sit here or leave that. Susan Neal is gonna come. Who? Susan Neal.
Okay,
Great.
there you go.
Hi, Susan.
Hey there, good
Can you
morning.
pronounce it Neal?
Meal, like 3 meals a day. Hi, I'm
Hi.
Susan.
I'm Jim.
Hi, Jim.
You're sitting right over there.
Okay,
You need water, you need?
he's getting me coffee.
Okay.
I'm
Meal.
Laura Stewart. Hi.
I mean, what
Nice
is
to meet you. Laura Stewart.
Laura Stewart.
I,
I thought we'd just have 15 more minutes of this, and then we'll go into you.
please, just fine.
Yeah.
This,
Put those on and make sure they're.
turn that off.
Yeah, hear the music.
Okay.
Turn this to mute.
All helpful things.
All the devices. Hillary only has one. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
Susan, in the beginning, I thought when we turn over to you, you've been a professional woman.
Right.
Laura's been a professional woman. Talk a little bit in the beginning and how difficult or maybe it wasn't difficult to be a professional woman in the 20th century. You know,
Sure.
you're competing
Okay.
in
Okay.
a society that is geared more towards men a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, originally, not as much now.
Not as much now.
Back in the
It's on
80s.
national, so that doesn't go over the airwaves.
I was hearing the music and I'm like, am I missing something?
Well, the other day, I don't know if you heard it, but I accidentally put on Quiet Riot, and then Dio followed that. Right.
I did hear it.
Let's see, just a few more minutes in terms of talking to Randy and then leadership. Can
The
you teach someone to
description
be a leader? Are
that,
people born leaders?
Jim
Or
described
like that.
about
And I
was
think-
like we catapulted off by an aircraft
You
carrier.
can teach
was
some of the
amazing.
qualities, but
Now
the
you can
basic,
talk about landing.
basic
Oh,
knowledge,
okay.
basic
Do you know, Jim?
talent has
Um,
to be there.
Rear
I think you're
Admiral,
born a leader or not.
Rear Admiral Jim Hart meets Susan Mead.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's-
Good to
we
meet
just sit out
you.
here.
Oh, that's.
And you're an Ohio State Buckeye.
Yes, I am.
You see that on the bio.
Oh, I had a sister who went to Ohio
Oh,
State.
did she?
Yeah.
OH? Yeah.
Yeah. She lives in Bexley,
Oh, sure. Uh-huh.
right in Columbus.
Right downtown the east side. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, just a few more minutes and
Yeah.
do things if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So that seat has a special job.
Uh-huh.
At some point, that timer will start to count down. He normally pulls it away and then puts it up. So
Okay.
all I need to know is from one of you two guys,
Okay.
whoever's in that seat, high sign to me, because I'm normally looking, but sometimes I get,
I can see him put it up. I can't see what it
That's
says.
fine.
So when it goes up, just, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's my timing cue that we're coming out to a news break or
Okay.
a commercial break. And I just have gotten so involved in the conversation with Jim this morning that I was like, can you let me know when it goes up? I get a music cue, but by then I only have a few seconds. It's a good thing. It's fun. It's totally fun. And you're doing great. Really, really great. I think your son will enjoy the recording of you. And we are on YouTube as well. So the
So
camera there.
don't touch anything you don't want.
Oh,
everybody to see.
Lord. You can't come in your jammies anymore.
Oh, you can.
That was-
You can. So during, like right now, we're live on YouTube. So everybody's hearing the conversations they're having. And
Okay.
during commercial breaks that
Thank you for warning me.
just wanted to let you know.
Yeah. The last time I went to record a interview, not expecting it, they said, oh, yes, and we're doing the visual recording too. I was like, you didn't tell me this. I mean, I didn't come prepared. I could talk, but the way I looked was, anyway.
Understandable. I
Well, I'm told I have a wonderful face for radio, so.
didn't put any makeup on or anything yet this morning. I've got it all over there. 'Cause I have to
About 20 seconds.
Fort Lauderdale to conduct some interviews at conference.
You have to put those on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just taking my earrings off. You don't need me right now. Don't think.
And you guys missed the poem. Stanford read a poem this morning, The Rat Man.
Yeah.
Isn't that a nice picture of him?
Oh, yeah, I have a copy of that.
Really good book.
Don't get me started.
thought we were going back on the air. I thought we were going back on the air after the last commercial and another one. I swear the reason for intro music is to get us all in the mood for the show. This is Laura Stewart and Stanford Erickson in for the on assignment Rhett Palmer, who is stalking us on the internet and texting. So we know he's listening. We know you're out there, Rhett.
And we know he's judgmental.
He sent us a video via text that we shared earlier after Stanford read his poem called The Rat Man. So if you didn't have to catch that earlier this morning, go up on Rhett's YouTube channel and you can see it all in its glory. So we are here also this morning, not only with Stanford Erickson, 35 plus year member of the National Press Club, poet and author of the amazing book, The Kind of Women Who Can Be President of the United States, but we are here with Rear Admiral Jim Hart, retired, who's going to share with us in a moment this incredible story of what it's like landing on a carrier and some leadership lessons. And we also have another guest in, Susan Neal. She is a Buckeye from Columbus here in Vero Beach. And she is a totally amazing marketing professional. We're going to talk some more about her, about PR, marketing, politics, and everything. So Jim, I need to know, you talk to us about what it's like to catapult off. What's it like to land on a carrier, and what did that teach you about leadership?
Well, landing on a carrier, it's very much of a controlled, violent crash, if you will.
Okay.
In some respects, because you're coming across the round down the end of the ship at probably between 130 and 150 miles an hour, and you're going to stop in just a couple of 100 feet, and you're going to do that by having a tail hook that catches one of 4 wires that are across the flight deck in the landing area for this. There's day landings, and then there's night landings, and night landings can be quite terrifying to some folks because there's such small amount of room for error, and you don't get to see a whole lot because of the nighttime or the weather. But
you're on a boat, right? So the boat's rocking and rolling at the same time. It's not like you're on a flat lake.
That's true, and there are some limits to that, but they're taken care of by the landing signal is called the Fresnel lens, which provides you glide slope information to land to try to, and they target this landing system for either the 2 or the 3 wire. Normally the 3 wire, but sometimes they'll target one of the other wires if they need to, because
Are the wires 1, 2, 3 in a row? Is that how it works?
yeah, one is the first one, 2, 3, and then 4. So if you land on the 3rd wire, you're landing in a very safe place on the flight deck. The 1 is dangerous, can be dangerous because it's so close to the edge of the ship, and you don't really want to land on that wire. Sometimes you get what's called the taxi 1 wire. You don't really want that to happen. That's pretty tough thing to have to do. But in the daytime, for example, when we come back to land, you'll have probably 12 to 15 airplanes that are going to land, and they'll circle above the ship at different altitudes. The first altitude will be around 2,000 feet above the ship. So those might be the fighters, and they'll be going around the ship, circling, and they'll be watching the takeoffs. So the catapults are operating, the airplanes leave. They button up the catapults, they get them secured. when they're ready for you to land, and we do this without talking. We try to do what we call zip lip, no talking. So the landing signal officers will turn the Fresnel lens on. And when the light comes on, that means you can land. So the first airplanes will come down, they'll go past the ship at about 1,200 feet. They'll make a big circle, they'll come around. And when they get a beam the back of the ship, they'll start to turn towards funnel, they'll put their gear and flaps down. And now the pilot's concentrating on looking at his lineup, the center line of the flight deck, and he's looking at this Fresnel lens, which provides him glide slope information. So when he has a green light right in the center of a row of white lights, he knows he's on glide path, and he just keeps flying down until he hits the flight deck, catches a wire. If there's an issue with that, because we try to do this without talking, the LSO, if he wants power, he might flash what they call the datum lights, or the white lights, for power. He'll flash it for power. If something's really dangerous, they'll either wave him off, the lights will go red, and you wave off, you go back around, or if it's really serious, they will come up and talk if they have to. So what we try to do is we try to land one of those airplanes about every 55 to 60 seconds if we can.
55 to 60 seconds?
Yeah, we try to, because see, in wartime, you have to be into the wind to land airplanes. So you have to be on a set, steady course. In wartime, you don't want to be on a set, steady course any longer than you have to.
Because other militaries may try to target you at
right,
that point.
submarines, other surface ships, whatever. So what we try to do is land as quickly as possible. And so when you come in, as you catch the wire, you'll feel the tug, okay, and your airplane will slap down on the flight deck. First thing the pilot does is he goes to full power in case he skips the wire or the wire breaks or there's any other kind of problem. He can get airborne again. He can get right back up in the air.
He doesn't have a catapult now to take him off.
Right. So as soon as you get this tug, and you're sitting in an ejection seat, so you have a harness around you that's on your shoulders and around your waist. You have to make sure that's locked, because if it's not, you're going to go flying forward. You don't want that to happen, because you're already going to go forward into the straps as the airplane decelerates. So that's all happening. As the wire runs out, the pilot will then a guy will come out and he'll tell you to throttle back, and throttle back. The wire will pull you back a little bit. The hook will come free from the wire, and it'll come back up, and then you'll taxi out of the landing area, and they'll park you, and they do it all again. And there's a lot that goes into this, because the wires on top of the flight deck, they call them cross deck pennants, but down below are these big hydraulic engines that provide the pull. So as you're pulling out on the wire, they're squeezing like this, which actually what slows you down so that you come to a stop. And it's very important, again, that you have your weight right. Now, when you land, you have to be at what they call maximum trap weight, or below. So for different airplanes, it's set. Like when I used to fly in the S3s, it was 37,700 pounds. You had to make sure that with your fuel and your ordnance, the basic weight of the airplane, you were at 37,000 or less. Because if you landed heavy, you could actually damage the arresting engines below the decks. You could break the wire. All
So that would
kinds of
mean
different
any other
things.
plane that's supposed to land 55 seconds later might not be able to.
Right, and if
so-
something bad like that happened, they could very quickly take that wire off, detach it, and then now you're down to 3. So that they'll probably target the 2 wire or the 4 wire at that point in time. And that's in a nutshell kind of how it all
So,
happens.
I'm hearing all these different moving pieces, and I was watching Susan's face while you were
Too
describing
complicated.
it. No,
No.
there's so much that we can learn as human beings from the leadership lessons of that. So can you leave us with a thought about what is one thing that you learned the most from being in the military? I know that's a really tough question. I'm asking you to boil it down, but
I think maybe overall what I learned, and it takes time and a while, but it's somewhat it's humility. It's don't always think you have the right answer, and don't always judge somebody by the way they look or what their rank is, because you never know what you're going to learn from that person, what they're going to contribute to the fight. I'll tell you a very quick story. When I was a task force commander in East Africa, we used to do goodwill projects. We were building a school out in the middle of nowhere for these Bedouins that moved around herding goats. And the guy that had the contract to do this for the U.S. government was being very, very slow in doing it. So I had a young lady engineer. Couldn't get this guy to do it. Went to his mother, had tea with his mother in this little village. All of our problems were solved the next week. The guy was right on time. He got everything done. So it's a little lesson in what you can learn from people and how you can approach things.
When you have to go outside the box and actually find out what's going on outside whatever you're dealing with, that would say that guy was a mama's boy, right, Stanford?
Well, it was a lady that did it, right?
Yeah,
Yes, but the mama had to come in to get the guy to do what he wanted to do.
Absolutely.
Rear Admiral Jim Hart, I really want to thank you so much for being with Stanford and I this morning and sharing your stories. And I'd love to have you back on another day.
Well, thanks. I enjoyed it very much.
All right, everybody. We'll be right back with more from the Rhett Palmer Show.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
That was great.
It was really, really great. Thank
That's
you
fine.
so much.
My only thought was, man, that wire must be incredibly strong, because it's taken the full force of the plane, which is starting to slow down because you're hitting
It
flat
is
ground.
probably
But then you said you throttle up, because you don't know if it's going to catch it. And the power to
it's amazing.
the strength of that wire. Wow.
We only use it for 100 landings, then we take it off.
Okay.
And
You can
put a
see
new-
why.
Put a new one on. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll get out of your hair here.
Well, Kim will be there in a little bit to clean the house. Okay.
Thanks
Did
so
you
much.
see,
Appreciate it. Okay, you have a great day.
Well, you do what you want, but we can also talk a little bit about, the,
County closes.
where the lawsuit.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of- But basically, there are a lot of Republicans, and Ray McNulty was here, and he's a Republican, and he just is so upset with Trump being so
It's okay.
unruly. He believes in all
That
the
was
issues
Mom.
that
A
Trump.
ton of commercials too.
Try to reconcile those two.
It was my
things
mom, so
and-
it's
And
fine.
deal with,
We're back on.
we don't want another Trump, Obama.
Mhm.
Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Stewart and Stanford Erickson on the other mic. And we are here with Susan Neal. She's 30 years plus marketing PR executive, volunteer for local candidates in Baltimore, Maryland. I mean, Susan, you wrote campaign phone scripts, you manned the phones, you worked media.
You ever been at a campaign headquarters?
I've seen it in movies.
Yeah.
I just watched our brand is Crisis with Sandra Bullock. Fantastic movie. I have no idea how true it is.
Is
or
it
not.
new or has it been out?
Yeah,
a while?
it came out in 2015, but it just hit cable.
Mhm.
And yeah, isn't it like truly, truly fantastic?
Really good start. It happens behind the scenes. It doesn't matter what part it is.
So the two of you need to
Well, let me
watch this
just
movie
qualify.
and then share if it's real or not.
When my days were like in the 80s, early 90s too. It was a little bit different. I mean, you really did go door to door. You really did make phone calls, and they weren't from major phone banks. So it was like the whole renaissance of information and technology has changed a lot. You couldn't control the message as well back then either.
You couldn't control the message? at
No.
all? You would think that you would have been able to control it more back then than now.
Well, in two ways. One was you only had a certain number of local TV stations, for instance, and one major local newspaper, and you were beholden to them. to get your message out the way you wanted them to. Now, if they don't do it properly, you can lay embedded tweeting at night, we know somebody is famous for right now. So that's a little bit different.
Okay, all right, I could see that. So you can course correct much quicker and
Mhm.
say, well, that wasn't what we really said.
Right.
But then who do you start to believe? You know, is it, I mean, in the day of Trump and Clinton and, you know, the stuff that's going on now where they're tweeting things and saying things, and is it them tweeting or is it the staffer tweeting? And,
Well, it really truly is overload now. But back during the days I'm talking about, as we've all talked about, I think in the past, that we were reliant on the 6 o'clock news anchor and the writers of that anchor show to tell the truth about what was going on. And that's all you got. And now you can find out, you can fact check on your own. And obviously, even there, you run into trouble because we know that some of the major search engines are starting to or have been guiding your searches, so to speak. So it all gets harder. You have to be listening, you have to, and hearing what people are saying and making your own judgments as much as anything else.
You know, I did public relations for just a short period of time in San Francisco. I started as a journalist, and the number one public relations person, Marion Conrad, had me over her house, and she said, "I'd like to hire you." And I said, "Well, I'm just going to be a journalist. You know, I just want to be a journalist." She said, "Well, what are you making?" I said, "Well, I'm making $5,000 a year." She said, "I'll give you 10." I said, "Okay." It's not working.
we're having some problems with your mic, so just talk more directly into
Is
it.
it okay? Is it working now? This wasn't working either with my ears.
Okay, so Stanford was saying absolutely brilliant things, and we're not sure that you could hear him, so we're going to move him to another mic right now. And
Well,
Stanford, why don't you share
I,
with
I
us?
was a journalist in San Francisco, and Marion Conrad, is this working now?
Yes.
And Marion Conrad, who's the number one public relations person in the whole West Coast, had me over her house, and she said she wanted to hire me. And I said, "I'm just going to be a journalist. I love being a journalist." She said, "Well, how much money are you making?" I said, $5,000 a year. She said, "I'll double it." I said, "Okay." So I only did that for about 9 months and then went with Business Week because I was so appalled by the politics. And we had candidates that were Republicans and Democrats. The problem with, if you're a Republican, is we never got a snitch. The snitch always came from the Republican, a Democrat working for a Republican who would call in and say, he's going to do this. But we never had anyone of the Democrats who would call us and say, he's going to do this. So the snitches were always Democrats working for Republicans.
Okay, I'm not sure that that's a good thing or not. I don't really know.
I mean, it just shows you that the politics, as you said, can be sort of disconcerting.
You know, Susan, you're very involved nowadays with the All Aboard Florida
Right.
issue that's going on. Based on what Stanford was just talking about, from a non-political person's perspective, I think there's something shady going on with
No, no, you don't. Really?
So can you share with me and the listeners out there a little bit about why you got involved with All Aboard Florida, and what are some things we really need to be knowing?
Well, I got involved because I had been involved in stopping the 750 regional planning movement. And then when we started to hear about
What is the 750?
In a nutshell, it was 7 counties for 50 years. It was central planning out of Miami, basically, that was going to tell everybody up and down the coast in 7 counties how they ought to plan their roads, housing, everything for the next transportation, et cetera, for the next 50 years. And we said, wait a second here. We think we like where we're living and how we're living. And if you in Miami want to do something like that, then go right ahead. And that's a whole different story for another time, because it gets into the concept of regionalism and taking control out of the local level and moving it to a larger, more powerful entity that you don't elect. And that's the critical thing. But we were fighting that we were fairly successful at stopping, in a way. And then we started hearing about All Aboard Florida, this train that was coming through. And our first thought was, this is a part of regional planning because it's called transit-oriented development. It means that somebody is going to put a railroad through your town. They're going to now control where you go and when you go. And then they're going to want to buy up the real estate and build stack and pack housing along it. And they're not going to let you do that terrible thing called suburban sprawl anymore. And you can't have your acre lot, and et cetera, et cetera. So we said, this is terrible. Then we found out we weren't even getting a stop, that the train was going to come ripping through here at 100 miles an hour, 32 times a day, not stopping. And it was supposedly a private venture. But then we found out all of the millions of dollars that we were going to have to put into this private venture. Then we realized that it was a freight move and a real estate move, and it was really driven by businesses in South Florida, Miami, and Orlando, and Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and it was to benefit them. So we said it's time out, and I think that everybody now up and down the coast knows that the Treasure Coast was getting majorly shafted, and will if the train does come through. So we just decided and talking earlier about public relations and the media and the message, we really needed to have a voice to the public. And we created that voice by creating organizations that could get the truth out. Because one thing that crony capitalists have, and a big
Oh, I like that term, crony capitalists. Okay.
well, actually, we're supposed to say crony corporatism because capitalism is a good thing. But anyway, but the giant hedge funds and the major corporations have millions of dollars to spend on spinning the message. And so we needed to get the truth out. So we formed some groups.
Do you think we have a chance?
Oh, yes. Funny. I sat down at the hair salon the other day. They saw my t-shirt, Move 'em West. And the woman said to me, I love your t-shirt. And you know what? It's not a done deal. And I said, you stole my line. I'm the one that tells everybody it's not a done deal.
Well, there's a story in the press journal today in terms of we're dropping one of the suits.
No, it's a minor suit.
Well,
Yes.
we create these suits to slow down the process so that they have difficulty selling their muni bonds.
Well, it's
Is that
not
right?
just, it wasn't just a suit to slow down the process. The things that went on that suit was challenging were horrendous from a local standpoint and from a crony capitalist standpoint, and the Florida Development Finance Corporation and how they were impaneled and how they made an illegal decision. So we could talk about that.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that some more, because I'm sort of feeling like there really is nothing we as the people can do to stop this from happening. It's already been decided. Somebody's been paid off. There's nothing you can do. And
But there is.
But there is. That is exciting to hear, because I think we all need to understand that we really can make a difference and how we can go do that. So we'll be right back with more from Susan Meal and Stanford Erickson. This is Laura Stewart.
How long are we on today?
It's about 10-15.
Okay, good.
Dale,
Okay, because
Dale
I'm like
Gladdy.
talking fast.
Yeah,
Because,
Dale Gladding is coming in, and
okay.
so for about 15 minutes, if you'd sit in with him,
I'd be happy to.
you know what I mean?
Right.
So that we make the transition, because now he's a local politician and
Uh-huh.
he's trying to do, and how do you, it's so difficult because he doesn't have the money, he doesn't have anything. And I found this town with Republicans primarily.
And don't forget, you're all on YouTube.
Yes, they structure
I was
it,
hoping
they
I didn't
structure
show
it to
anything
such a
when I
degree
stressed.
that it's, now it's your turn and now it's your turn. And it just inhibits really entrepreneurs, people that have a message. And that goes to Trump as well. I mean, that's what happened.
Hello.
Outsiders.
Any idea what happened to this one, Mike?
We had problems with it yesterday, and it started to, lower its volume. And I didn't want it blasting, because yesterday we had an interference blast with it. So that I just don't want to use it.
We're going to have 3 people in here later. So maybe at the news break, we can play with it a little bit.
What I might do is take this 58 and put it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's interesting Dale's coming.
And that's not the best news. I can't record your program this morning.
You can't record my program? Oh man, that's a major, major issue.
Adobe Audition went down on us Saturday.
Look at the program you're doing right now.
No,
You
I
can-
have my regular show.
But
I figured I'd tell you now rather than 5
You
minutes
can
to
record it. You can record
So,
it on your.
My guest today is a major, major player, and not having that podcast is going to be a problem.
Can you record it on your cell phone?
That's
No,
right.
because my guest calls in.
Oh, oh.
Well, at least they're not calling.
Let me get creative.
Maybe not.
Thanks. If not, we may have to see if I can get her to come back on and do just a record or something.
What's your regular show?
It's All About the Questions. It's from 11 to 12 every Tuesday, and I interview people from all over the world. And my goal is to help people understand that the right questions can change your life.
Oh,
Well, she
okay.
wrote
I
a
think I've
book.
heard it.
Giving all your questions.
Okay,
So I wrote a book called What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to Ask Along the Way.
okay.
It's
There
not
are
about
some
the
wise women. We've understood.
It's not about,
Amazing.
yeah, it's not about the answers. It's about questions to ask that change your life. And so the goal of my show is for people to have their perspective shift, to understand that the reason they're asking the questions they are is because of their experiences and the experiences of those around them. So by exposing them to people with different backgrounds, different experiences, different knowledge bases, it can help them create new ways of thinking.
And that's how you really become wise, because
Mm-hmm.
you assimilate other people's ideas as well.
Well, formulating a good question requires analytics.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, I have a great question for Hillary and the whole email thing, which is,
We have to have you talk about that.
well, do you want to hear the question?
Well,
Yeah.
let's-
I think I know how I'm going to
let's
do it. I'm going to run off the board into my cell phone, convert it, and then drop it back on the computer so I can send it to you.
So then, we're in news break.
Jim was phenomenal. I wish I had heard the whole thing. I'm just,
Well, we have that up on YouTube, so he was really fascinating. I let him go a lot longer with it because to me it was the way he described it really made you feel like you were there and all the elements that were involved with that. So
it made me think about, we were watching,
1 minute, 30 seconds out.
I got 1 minute and 30.
we were watching the movie about Pearl Harbor the other day. And I realized watching it, the technology that the Japanese had as far as military went, leading up to World War II, was pretty incredible. I mean, they were taking off and landing off of those ships to bomb Pearl Harbor. And you think about, another thing that Trump talks about is that now we protect the Japanese because a part of those World War II treaties, I'm thinking,
Yes.
was that they couldn't arm
Yes,
themselves
Yes,
again
and
like
it's in their
that.
constitution.
So they don't have to spend, I mean, think about the money that went into creating their armaments initially and that they don't need to do anymore. So you start to see this whole military industrial complex and who's paying for it and who isn't, you know.
Well, it's why they're opposed to Trump.
Do you need anything else? Or are you good beverage wise? Okay.
Now, the most trusted name in radio, Brett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
Got Sean Murphy over there doing some fun things on the studio board. This is Laura Stewart in for Rhett Palmer, who's on assignment, but he is stalking us and texting us and sending us some fun stuff. And I'm here with my co-host Stanford Erickson, the amazing
Nice
man.
to be here.
Wrote a great book, The Kind of Women Who Can Be President of the United States. If you're on YouTube, you can see the cover right now. And here with Susan Meal. Susan, you were
A kind of woman that could be president of the United States.
I would agree with you, just from the little bit I've known about her so far. And you were talking about all aboard Florida, and that there is something we can do, that it's not a done deal.
Right. Well, it is difficult to imagine that we would have any impact in stopping the southern portion, Palm Beach to Miami. They were split deliberately into two segments for corporate reasons. And that it is so enthusiastically supported, and the money behind it down in the South counties is so much that we can't stop that. But we can stop the northern portion, and that's what we're working to do. And for a number of reasons, I think that it won't happen. I still believe that there are people at the federal government level, believe it or not, who understand the threats and will not just rubber stamp this all the way through, but we need to be vigilant and make them see the truth about this project. Also, there are local, state, and regional agencies that have to approve permits that they haven't already. And there are other ways at some point that we could challenge issues legally in court. The environmental impact statement still has not been challenged, and that's kind of an involved bureaucratic issue that I won't get into. But the things that people can do to help stop it, they can stay on top of it, they can listen, they can understand that what they read from All Aboard Florida is spin. It's not usually true, and it's glorifying their progress. But another thing coming up now that's critically important is who you vote for. And there are people campaigning out there regionally and locally who don't believe that we should continue to fight it with everything that we have. And I'm very concerned about that because it's short-sighted. It may be a good campaign slogan to say we're spending too much money on fighting the trains, and so we've got to stop. But millions and millions of dollars will be drained from our tax base if this thing comes through.
Let me just say why strategically dealing with the campaign and not voting for those who are not supporting this, how important that is. Governor Scott wants to run for senator. Governor Scott, to win, to be the U.S. senator, needs the Treasure Coast. If people like Jay Kramer, who is very important to Governor Scott, if he does not get elected, he does not get elected because he has not tried to help us in terms of stopping this in the Treasure Coast. If he does not get elected, Governor Scott will take notice of that. And I think other people who have not helped, if they do not get elected, Governor Scott will take note of that. And only Governor Scott, with his leadership, can divert the train west in the Treasure Coast. It's fine going down from the south up, but from the Treasure Coast, you just move it on the side by 95, and then you come back. You come in the north, you're fine, but skirt the Treasure Coast. If Governor Scott sees that, he might wake up to the fact that his political career is now on the line. So I agree with you. I think you vote against the people who have not helped us in terms of stopping these trains.
Right. And most of them say that they are against the train. Some of them say, everybody says they're against the train right now. Some of them say they don't want to spend any more money against the train. And the ones that say they're against it now, we haven't seen them at a rally, at a hearing, at anything until they decided to run for office. Unlike the people they're running against, like Bob Solari, Commissioner Solari, or Commissioner Zork, who were there in the trenches from day one and
holding up signs,
going to rallies, going to hearings, and
raising the money at voting to raise the money.
Right. So, but the bottom line is that there are so many negatives about this, and there are so many threats to our lives, our businesses, our housing values, and the millions that will run out of our tax coffers, that it's short-sighted to say we've spent too much already and we shouldn't spend any more. That's outrageous, because it will be far, far more that it will cost us. And there were just finally some articles in the local press journal about the dangers of privately owned crossings and what kind of safety features will be applied there. And there's very little oversight in so many areas of the safety issues. We've talked about the proximity to a nuclear power plant. We've talked about the terrorist threat, because anybody that wants to can park a truck full of explosives at a crossing, and we have a disaster. So anyway, you got me started. If my husband were here, he'd be kicking my leg.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here and my mind, it just keeps going, and I'm saying, all right, well, I don't want to rely on Governor Scott, for anything, because he's not really shown that he cares to me.
Mhm.
Okay. With the whole EPA thing, with the toxic releases, with any of those different things, I'm not really seeing that he seems to care anymore
Not for the
about
treasure coast.
about us. It's all about himself. It feels like, unless we're not knowing something else
I
is going
think one
on.
of the things that transcends Scott, and which thank goodness has happened, they don't have the money to build the second portion. They don't have the money. They're pretending they do. And talking about a lawsuit that was recently dropped at the state level, that was peanuts. We still have lawsuits pending at the federal level, and we still hope that the judge up there understands that they don't have the money to do this without being able to sell those private activity bonds. And at this point, the bond buyers aren't buying them, because they know it's a bogus business plan and a terrible deal. And so the longer we draw this out, the more money it costs them to draw it out. I mean, they were supposed to be operating in 2015. It's 2016, and they aren't operating. So that, to me, speaks volumes about what we've done so far and what we can continue to do.
Okay, so where does somebody living on the Treasure Coast get real information about the facts and what is going on?
There are a couple of organizations. One is Citizens Against Rail Expansion. Their website is SaveOurFL, like SaveOurFlorida.com. Citizens Against the Train, their website is Citizens Against the Train. And if they called the studio here and wanted to give me their email address, I could send them my newsletter called The Trainwreck Times.
Is there a website they can go to sign up for the Trainwreck Times?
Not really. We have not wanted to reinvent the wheel of all of this. We do have a Facebook page. It's called TC, for Treasure Coast No Trains Coalition. And they can go to TC No Trains Coalition and I guess instant message me. I'm not all totally up on that, but we haven't been active at that Facebook page. But if they want to do that and give me their email address, they can get our newsletter. But Citizens Against the Train tweets and has a major Facebook page, and they're very good at getting out the latest news.
That's really great to know, because I just learned so much about what's going on compared to what I've been reading. And, Stanford, you and I last week, we were talking about this, about the different perspectives. And journalism today isn't like the journalism I grew up with, where you knew they were presenting both sides and you were getting facts versus what they want you to know. And this is just one of those examples. And that's the beauty of radio, right? So thank you, Rhett, for letting us do the show for you today so that we could have this great guest that Stanford brought on, Susan Neal. This is really, really cool stuff. Now, before we went into the last commercial break, and when we were during the YouTube, those of you, we're on YouTube, so wave everybody in YouTube land. You have a question, because we were talking about my show, which goes on at 11. It's all about the questions. And when we come back from the commercial break, I'm going to have you share and talk about. You have a question that you wanted to ask Hillary Clinton about email, and I've spent all day yesterday at a technology conference, CompTIA ChannelCon in Fort Lauderdale. Drove back last night. I'm going down there today, and we've been talking about cybersecurity. I'm interviewing top tech executives and solution integrators about the biggest cybersecurity concerns and how we as human beings can protect ourselves against CryptoLocker and all those other things. So I have a whole bunch of questions from the geek perspective because I just don't get how that happened. And we're going to be back in a few moments with Stanford Erickson and Susan Neal.
Trump's not going to get his due justice here this morning.
This break's gonna
We
be
spent
rather
so
quick.
much time on All Aboard Florida. I said,
Thanks,
Trump's not
I
getting his
didn't
due
wanna
diligence.
stretch
We're,
it.
we're gonna do another.
We'll have a little bit, yeah.
15.
This is like a
So
20-second,
you got
30-second
it.
break. And then we'll.
Well, the question can lead right into Trump.
Yeah.
All right, Kelly. I will do the lead to what is the question you want to ask.
Okay.
I will the email and Kelly can do your thing. So this kind of funny.
15 seconds.
Doing all this cybersecurity stuff yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and you have that question. I love Zydeco. So Susan, what is this question you want to ask Hillary about this whole email thing?
Well, I think it's very basic, and you have to forget everything that has transpired since she left the Secretary of State position, and just ask her, when you walked into the office and sat down and decided to set up your information systems, did you really think that you would never ever receive a single email with high security material on it? Ever. In the 4 years you were Secretary of State. Because she says she never got it or received it or sent it. Forget sending. You can control what you send, but you can't control what you receive. So we are to believe that she set this up with the knowledge and understanding and the belief that she would never receive high top security information on her email address.
Well, on her Fox interview last Sunday, she basically.
Hold on, we're having some trouble with your mic again.
Uh-oh.
All right, try again. Stanford, let's see if we can get you, because
on
you had some
her-
great points.
On the Fox interview, she basically threw under the bus all those professionals in the State Department saying, well, it's too bad, but they did probably send me something. You know, she threw them under the bus. She said, it's their fault that they did it. If you heard it, it was a sort of nuance, but that's what she said.
So she never anticipated getting a high security clearance required document ever while she was Secretary of State. You see, to me, that's the more unbelievable thing.
We're having some technical for the airplane that's going past off the Vero Beach Airport is causing some difficulty with the show today. But obviously my mic is good. So, hey, I'm the most important person here because I'm on the other side of the desk, right? Right, Sean? Okay, cool. Excellent. All right. So your perspective, Susan, your question and what Stanford was talking about Hillary blaming the other people for replying or sending her materials and the question, as an IT person who's handled mail servers and all those other things, what I see often happen is people get an email and they reply not looking at the address that the email came from. Because in their contact list, it's just going to put the name Hillary Clinton or
Sure.
Laura Stewart or Susan Neal up. They're not going to necessarily look and see that came from her personal email server. But they knew that that's where she was living in terms of her digital conversation. So there's an implied consent that that's the way they're supposed to communicate with the Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm. And as the Secretary of State, she must have.
We're good.
Okay, as the Secretary of State, she must. If they're half smart, have to assume that somewhere in 4 years they were going to receive a top secret document. So anyway, but that's enough of that. It was just a basic question.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted Susan here is I have a lot of Republican friends, and they believe and support many of the issues that Donald Trump has risen. And many of the issues that he's brought up is a unique perspective. And now you see even the Hillary Clinton accepting some of his positions on issues like trade. He's the one that really brought that up to the consciousness. But what bothers these Republicans is his the way he treats people, his texting message. This final where he's dealing with a captain who died, and he's taking on the parents. Now they took him on, but
don't get me started on that, Stan.
Okay.
I spent 24 hours just looking into that whole thing and debating it with some people. I believe that it's a terrible, terrible thing to lose a child anyway. You do. In military, defending our country is just, if not, I guess, worse than doing that. And I feel terribly sorry for those people. But as is typically the case, there is a lot more to the story than meets the eye. Number one, I really believe that they used the death of their son in a political format to make it a political attack.
Of course they did. But
Let me finish. That diminishes, to me, their whole reason for being at that convention. Number one. Number two, we're finding out, and all this has to be fact checked, that the father is in some ways connected to the Clinton campaign. And from what I read just last night and this morning, he is involved in getting visas for Muslims to bring them over here, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this may sound cruel, but you can't separate the guy's background and what he does from him coming to a political arena and using the death of his son in a political way to attack. He could be there and he could say, my son died for this country. He was a Muslim and he was a military person and he gave his all, the ultimate sacrifice. My son, the ultimate sacrifice, not me. And you could understand it, but then to turn it around and attack somebody like he did, and then every time Trump is attacked and he comes back, and maybe he doesn't say the exact perfect words every time, but he comes back and defends himself or counters with a defensive attack on the person that attacked him to begin with, then he is the bad person and they are to be glorified. And I think what you're finding is that more and more people are coming to Trump's defense because this is what has happened to conservatives. They have been attacked time and time again for their conservative beliefs, their religious beliefs, any beliefs. And then when they speak out in defense of their beliefs, then they are the villains. So this is just a small sample of a symptom of a bigger problem that we have here. And it's being perpetrated by the left. And this is an example of it.
I assume that. But if you're going to be president of the United States, I think you have to know when to speak and when not to speak and when to have other people speak. And you have to have the shrewdness of not being baited in to something and being trapped. And and he's not demonstrating that.
I know that, but you know what? We're beyond that at this point because he has moderated some of his reactions. When they go to the core of him and his being, I think maybe it's harder for him to moderate that. But the bottom line is 99% of the people following him don't care about that anymore. And in fact, as they've said, he's their wrecking ball. He is the only one with the cojones to say, call out CNN for everything that it's done that's been politically, liberal or progressive. He names the names, he points the finger, and he doesn't take crap from anybody. And that is why people like him more and more and more. Now, that's beside the fact that the issues, as you brought up, the trade, the immigration, and all of those are ringing true and right to the heart of many, many Americans. But also, it's that they are tired of being PC. And
PC meaning politically correct.
correct. We should come up with a more interesting, funny term for the initials PC, but not now.
Okay, during the commercial break, we're going to come up with one. We have some time. But
anyway, it's just, he's not going to change. He is who he is. Many people love him for that. And in fact, I might mention there is a group has formed here in Indian River County that soon will go statewide called American Women Love Trump. And if you want to go to their website or their Facebook page, you can learn all about why American women love Trump. But
as an American woman, I'm having some issues with that. But okay.
Well, I thought maybe the L could have been like instead of love.
I'm not sure I like him as a potential president with the words that come out of his mouth, but I also know that he is a very media focused person his entire career and life, and it's all about creating those polarizing kind of things. I'd like to believe that he doesn't truly treat women the way he talks, because his daughter Ivanka and everything is such an amazing and brilliant young woman.
Laura, it sounds like you've been listening to the mainstream media a little too much.
I try not to listen to the media, and I'm trying to figure out, that's why you're on. One of the reasons why I love having the two of you is because I need to shift that perspective.
I need to know what specifically you believe he has said about women that is so negative, specifically.
It would be those comments that you hear where he makes fun of a woman because of the way she
Well,
looks.
Carly,
There
Carly
was
Fiorina,
there was
Carly Fiorina stuff.
look at her face. I mean,
That was
terrible.
I think
And I know I'm only hearing parts.
it was taken out of context. I have to tell you that more than one man said to me before that even came out, she always looks so stern and angry, and so she's overboard trying to be assertive because she's a woman in a man's world.
No, it's the Botox.
Well, now are we talking about Nancy Pelosi, or are we talking?
Similar.
At the same time, you never hear men talk to or describe that way, right? But that's a cultural
you know what?
thing.
It wasn't also, okay, we've got that one circumstance. It was in private. It was in private. It wasn't in the media. It wasn't at a rally.
Oh, he said it on a.
No, it wasn't recorded. It was in a meeting.
No,
Okay.
I
right.
heard it.
So
During the-
we're about to go to the news break, and you've got me rethinking some things.
Mhm.
We're going to have to talk during the break to tell me where I need to go to actually find out the real information. And we'll be right back with more from Susan Neal and Stanford Erickson. This is Laura Stewart in for Rhett Palmer.
I like that, the wrecking ball. I've never heard that
Oh,
before.
you haven't?
No, I like that.
Oh, yeah.
And he is, and to some degree, that's what attracts me to it. It's truthful to be said, but I'm also disturbed.
Well, the whole thing, I got to tell you right now, the Megyn Kelly thing and the blood, that was the biggest bag of baloney that the media did on that.
Well, I never made that.
Well,
I got two facts for you. This guy, Khan's son, number one, he was killed in 2004. Number two, he is a stated and documented over a dozen times member of the Brotherhood of Islam.
Mhm.
The
Stated.
father?
Yes,
The father's Muslim Brotherhood
absolutely.
connections.
And
Connections,
dozens,
brother
Yes.
and a mother?
yeah,
The
dozens of
father.
documented.
Really?
Go ahead.
He wrote on it. He wrote on Sharia law. I mean, the father.
Yeah, and these are documented. These aren't like, I
Well, you
mean,
saw the
these-
same emails. They pulled
And
the
then,
source documents.
again, I lost my younger brother, and I lost my uncle. And we would never, as the Murphy family, ever allow to be used as a political pawn, especially for something that's so anti-democratic.
And this guy's got a ponytail. I'm impressed.
Well, I served also.
Oh, good for
I got out in
you.
1986 from the U.S.
Thank
Army.
you.
So. But it makes me so, that's why we moved to Indian County, because I couldn't take the lunacy down in St. Lucie
Oh,
County.
can you oh God, oh God.
And all of Bard, Florida, don't get me going there.
Yeah.
The other mic now or no?
I think I've got it
Susan,
fixed,
you
but
move here, he's going to be
I'm
here.
gonna cross
Hey,
our
Dale.
fingers.
Good to see you.
Worst that can happen,
You sit over there, Dale.
Sanford, worst that can happen is that it starts to go lower again, and then when I go to break, I'm gonna make the switch out real quick, okay? So
I
I'll try
brought
my
notes.
best.
We're not even getting too long. Oh, this is yours.
No, you're speaking very well.
Okay.
What I'm bringing up is what a lot of people think, and which
I know. Listen, I gotta tell you something. My sister I posted the letter on Facebook yesterday from the ex-Marine Navy guy who countered all of Mr. Khan's arguments. I posted it on Facebook. And my sister wants to be my friend on Facebook, so she needs to deal with it. She sends me in an email the link to Gold Star Families. I said, what's this? And I didn't know if she had seen the letter, and I sent it back to her. And I sent the letter to her, and I said, Gold Star Families will read this. And she sent back a note to me that said, no, you don't get it. I'm talking about sacrifice. I am livid because she's going to tell me I need sensitivity training on what a Gold Star family is.
You know, the irony in that whole thing is the week before at the Republican convention, they had the mother of one of the Benghazi victims. And that was universally condemned by the liberal media, who said they're using that for political purposes.
And she's a whack job.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have it both ways.
No,
You know?
but they can. Every time they can have it both
Well,
ways.
when we get to Dale, if you just take today's paper, how many stories are for Hillary and how many columns for Hillary? There's one story deals with Trump. And basically it says that regardless of the vote, Americans see division. That's the only thing that's somewhat positive. And there's
I have to
one,
tell you,
two,
since
6
Dale's here.
stories.
I have to tell you, since Dale's here, you asked me originally to come and speak about why I'm supporting Trump.
Yes.
So I thought, what can I say? And I went to a letter I just wrote to the editor of the Press Journal and to a few other people about Dale's about the race for the seat that you won. It wasn't specifically about you. It was about somebody else in this race. And when I read it, I said, oh, I'm really clever, because what I'm saying about this race transcends to the Trump race. And what I said was, I put value in hard work, original thought, and life experiences, combined with an understanding of state finances and a keen ability to analyze complex problems, and the company you keep. And the last line was, he doesn't get it, or he doesn't make it, or something like that. I'm talking about Trump. Okay. And because I have looked at all of this campaign stuff coming out. When the Florida Chamber of Commerce endorsed your opponent, I went over the top, because the Florida Chamber of Commerce is the crony capitalists of this state. It's all the Florida East Coast rails, all aboard Floridas, and they're liquefied.
Let's save some of that when
That's literally why I lost that endorsement, because I was in a room. It was a conference room as big as a football
Oh, Matt
field.
Muller's calling in the chits,
Thank you.
baby.
And that's exactly it. And when
we're going to be on.
Let's
save that.
All these people are out there now saying I'm a dodo for supporting Trump because what he said about what's her face.
That's Dale Gladding, right?
Is it?
Dale Gladding?
Yes.
Okay. Did you bring a bio with you? They got thumbs up.
Laura, is your interview with her tomorrow?
It's today at 11. I don't know if those on YouTube can see this. Let me see. All right, I got thumbs up from Rhett. Stanford and I are getting thumbs up from Rhett for our show today. Okay, tell me exactly what you're running for.
State representative in District 54, which is all of Indian River County and the northernmost part of St. Lucie County.
State Rep, District
54.
54, and the covers again.
All of Indian River County and the northernmost part of St. Lucie County.
Stanford, you know more about Dell than I do, so I'll mention it and then you can tell more about it.
Well, we're going to continue with her for 15 minutes.
Yeah, but you know.
Yep, will do. Rhett Palmer.
And this is Laura Stewart here with Stanford Erickson in for the assignment. Rhett Palmer, who just gave us a thumbs up via text.
Good. So he's not as judgmental as usual.
And I've also gotten some other texts from some other people listening to the show today saying they are loving our show today. And they really, really enjoyed the segment with you, Susan. So thanks for staying with us a little bit longer.
Susan Meal.
Susan Meal is here. We're talking about all about Florida. She's making me shift my perspectives about my perceptions of
She
Trump.
likes Trump.
And we also have a new entry into the studio. We're going to get more into conversations with him later, but we have Dale Gladding here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. So Susan Stiffer, we were going back and forth before the break.
I was just wondering in terms of, and Susan is, and I like this where she said that what's good about Trump and what attracts people to Trump is he's a wrecking ball. And I don't disagree with that because I'm so upset with the establishment and the media establishment in terms of selecting who our leaders should be. So if you could speak more to that a bit.
Well, there was a fabulous article out recently about why conservatives should coalesce around Donald Trump. And the premise of that is that there are conservative philosophies and there are accomplishing conservative philosophies, getting the job done. And it explained that we've had the Senate controlled by Republicans, the House controlled by Republicans, the president a Republican, and we've all wanted conservative ideas